So it's awesome to be here with you guys finally. We've been talking about this for quite some time, and I'm happy we're all finally doing this. So for those of you who are going to watch this in the future, we all met roughly about 4 years ago and all through the military. And some of the conversations, that we had during our time in the military, we really felt that it was necessary, to kind of showcase it in a way, right? Because currently the world we live in, there's a lot of negative talks and personal attacks that occur with these types of conversations. So our whole goal with this and the whole idea was behind this was to promote conversation among controversial topics. And not just controversial topics, something that everyone can relate to, especially men, is in our early 30s to early 40s, right? There's a lot of expectations on us, especially in society. So that's our main goal with this podcast. And we hope you all enjoy it.
Yeah, man. I ditto that 100%. I appreciate you guys. But as you know, the name of this podcast is Operation on the Rocks. So ladies and gentlemen, we got the Gentleman's Jack right now, and I'm going to go ahead and pour up a little bit for my boys.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So we can get this party started, man, and we can actually dive in. Cheers, fellas. I appreciate you boys being here. So let's kick this thing off, man. What we talking?
Guys, can I tell you, just Trey, Bradley, that was phenomenal. The way you guys just opened up the show, this is about to be amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of controversial topics, let's get into it. So we would like to start with, what do you guys think about President Donald J. Trump's second term in office?
I mean, here's what I'll say, because I want to be fair, I got pros and I got cons. For me, the two pros, I'll just start with that. I think that President Trump is reasonable when he's thinking about border patrol. I think that he's responsible for thinking about it. And it's bittersweet for me, and I'll tell you why. The reason why my pros for him are bittersweet, and this first one is because, yes, it is important that we rally up and we pick up what we're doing at the border, but it is also important to be humanitarian, to be humane, to not snatch people from school and work and from their children. That is not the American way. You got to remember, most of the people that are talking about sending immigrants back to their country, their grandparents were immigrants. Now, you may say, oh, well, they were legal. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. There was a time when Irish people were coming off the boat, Italian people were coming off the boat, and the list goes on and on. We're in 2025, and there's a lot of, visceral thoughts towards some of these immigrants, and that's where I disagree. But I do think that he's got the right thought process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he wants to improve, but how you get to the goal is just as important as the goal. My second pro for Trump is, he's a businessman, right? He wants to improve things, I think, in the economy. But how are you doing it, right? Are you treating this like a Fortune 500 company that you can bankrupt and then rebuild? Because this is not a company that you can bankrupt. These are people. There's a middle class, a poor class, and an elite class, or a rich class, whatever you want to call it. You have to pay attention to the socioeconomic implication of your actions. When you say, hey, we're going to put tariffs, 150% tariffs on every country, including our allies, well, you know what that does for us? That makes the average American pay more. That makes my new car that I need because I just had a newborn go up in price, and so on and so forth. So 2 pros, both bittersweet. Now let's get to the cons. For me, in this particular, I'm not going to go back, to 2016, but in this particular administration for 2024, I think Trump is trying to bankrupt the country. I think he's trying to bankrupt the country and rebuild it in his image. And to me, I signed on, we're veterans. I signed on to protect the Constitution. That's my job. I sign my life on the line for that. I'll take a bullet for that. I will not take a bullet for a man that says that I'm supposed to. that wants me to pledge allegiance to him and just him. And that's the vibe I'm getting. I think we're the most divided that we've ever been in this country. I think that we are all turning into the tribalism, and at this point has reached a level that I haven't seen since post 1960s when we were going through the Civil Rights Acts. That's a big deal to somebody like me. My great grandfather was a slave. It matters to me that you're rolling back civil rights laws. May not matter to everybody, but that matters to me. So, I hope that what he's doing can change America for the better. But those are my thoughts.
Okay.
So look, yeah,
Man.
go ahead, Noel.
No, man. I mean, just I'm not to co-sign on a lot of the things that he said. I think Trump, he's trying to take he's trying to take a step forward in the way that he knows how. Um, I think a lot of times it's not what you do, but how you do it. You know what I'm saying? I think perspective is everything. So for people who may come from a background that's similar to his, they may see, yeah, this is what we want to see. This is you're doing everything correct. But if you go on the other side of the tracks, and you look at it from a different perspective, people may have issues with that. And even outside of that, man, like how you do things as a leader, and we were all military, right? It can all it can affect the way your people, you know what I'm saying, respond and react to situations, man. And so I think that some situations in our country have happened because of the way things were rolled out. Um, but I also think, from a business standpoint, I see what he's trying to do. Yeah, man, like there's a lot of for me, there's a lot of contention, you know what I'm saying? Because I got to think about I have to explain to my son certain things that he can say, certain things that he can do, to certain things that he has to watch out for when he's in public. And I think that because of the type of leadership, man, it's intensifying that, you know what I'm saying? And so that's just from me, you know what I'm saying? If we're talking about getting on policy and all that type of stuff, I want to believe that he has the country's best interest and that, with the tariffs and things like that. And I've never really thought about that. Like, I was like, yo, he's trying to bankrupt the country so we can restart and have a fresh new start. I really never thought about it from like that standpoint. Like that's pretty crazy to think about, to be like, I'm gonna jack up everything and then we're gonna restart, because we do have people's lives on the line or whatnot. But that's what I got to say just for now, man. Like I want to believe that he wants this country to go in the right direction. But there are some things that personally I gotta watch out for my family, and I gotta, that I have to make sure that my kids, what I'm saying, my soon-to-be wife are good and in the know. You know what I mean? Because everything is not on the up and up. I'll say that for sure. So yeah.
Yeah, I think those are two really good takes, and there is a reason why people have gotten behind Trump and people have gotten against Trump. Ever since he came down the escalator, I think it would be fair to say people have been against him. And one of the biggest stories of the 2024 cycle was that it was the biggest comeback in at least American political history, maybe even world political history. Um, but and I'm Mario, by the way, team. Nice to meet you. I'm kind of I don't represent MAGA or speak for MAGA, but I look at myself as kind of a MAGA aficionado, as the rest of the guys know here. Um, it MAGA feels like they've tried it. They've tried it that way. They've tried it the nice way and the easy way, and they tried shutting down the border and taking control of these things in the way that it has been, and it's not been effective. And for a point specifically like the border, that was more evident over the previous administration than it's ever been. Trump is he's all the things that people say about him on the surface, right? He's a loudmouth and he's this and that, and like, yeah, he does have his own house style of the way that he communicates. But it's also fair to say that the border's about as locked down as you can make it right now, unless you did want to go like full deployment on the borderline. And yes, there is some military members that are down there, and we thank all of them for being down there in service of our country. But that's one area that you've got a very specific result. And then like, what would we compare it to? Like, if we're not happy with that, well then who does have the secure border that we're going after?
So if and Trey, I'm gonna let you get to it because I know it's your turn next. I just wanted to respond. So statistically speaking, Obama actually had the most secure border out of both presidents. And I know that no conservative will ever come out their mouth and say that, because why give Obama any credit? But historically, right, before we started saying, hey, we're going to build a wall and we're going to do this kind of stuff, Obama actually had a very strict policy, right? But the difference is, and I'll go back to that original thought process, is it's humane. He introduced the DACA program, which, hey, look, I get it. We do got to get these criminals out. I agree. I agree with that. I don't disagree with that. There are immigrants in this country that have committed crimes, and they need to be sought out, and they need to be taken to their country immediately and dealt with properly, right? But with due process. Not, I'm just going to run up on you and assume because you speak Spanish that you're an enemy. So let me send you to Venezuela. There's a big difference between that thought process and, hey, let's secure this border.
Yeah, and Obama was known as the deporter in chief, and those deportations were happening like at the actual border. They weren't coming across, and I think that's one of the things too that surprised a lot of people, even if they disagreed with President Biden's administration or his political party and affiliations. They weren't expecting that because he was the VP for Obama, and so it took everyone off guard. And even Trump has come out and said he was never for that. And we see the stories that have come out now about President Biden after his term has passed. And those same people that were telling us he's okay are now the people that are telling us that there was a cover up, when a lot of people were saying that there was a cover up all along. And I mentioned that to say, like, the stats and the reports and what gets reported in general, there's a part of it where it gets reported as a statistic, and maybe there's a number on a sheet of paper. A lot of people just flat out don't believe those statistics, though.
I understand. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So let's take this from a a more wider approach, a more wider lens of angle, so to speak. So when you look at things like border security, right? What is your end goal, right? Your end goal is to stop people coming into this country that are not legal citizens, right?
Yeah.
One of the models and one of the things I do agree with that Canada does is they're very strict about who they let in. And there's other European countries, such as Switzerland, Norway, things like this. They only allow people in who greatly contribute to their society, right? And that's very well documented. But not to get off topic about that, but deportations and border patrol is going to be an ugly business no matter how you approach it, right? When you look at most countries and how they operate, they look at your visa. Is your visa expired? What are you here for? And, how long? If your visa's expired, you're going back home, plain and simple. Now, granted, people come over here. The United States for a long time has been the absolute symbol and object of freedom and democracy. Now, we all know, most of us have children in here. 3 of us have children in here. And we know that you give your children an inch, they're going to take a mile. So it's hard to say, and it's harsh to say too, right? Because there are families affected by this. Are there cases of people being deported without due process illegally? I'm sure there are. But it's going to be almost impossible, right? Like, you take the number of people that probably crossed the border during the Biden's previous term, it's going to be impossible to determine the actual number, right? It could be drastically more than was actually reported. And I would venture to say that it is because we share a pretty significant and overstretched border, right? So it's going to be an ugly business no matter how you look at it, right? And you have to take into account that this is something that's a necessity, because when you have thousands of undocumented people, right, it is a strain on things such as your healthcare system. They do provide many benefits. Let's not get that confused. Like there is a lot of job that immigrants currently do, such as fielding our crops. That cannot be overlooked.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that I wouldn't do it. The majority of Americans would not do what they do, especially for the pay that they receive. But there has to be a happy medium. Where that is, I don't know.
Well, and let me, if you don't if you don't mind, I want to follow up on that because I agree with you. You're right. We have to have some revision. We have to have some reform. And that's why I said I do agree with President Trump in that regard. But that's why you introduce programs like DACA, which he repealed, right? Which he's like, oh, we're getting rid of that, right?
So explain DACA for those of us who aren't as familiar with it.
So DACA allows you asylum based on your children, right? So that's what essentially in a nutshell. And of course, audience, feel free to, fact check and go do your own research. But that is it in a nutshell, right? Your children essentially will be granted citizenship, right? Based on that. And the other law that's very important to understand is the birther law, right? Which dated back to slavery. So the reason why the birther law was put into place was so that after slavery was ended, you wouldn't have, and I'm going to say this, it's not about race baiting or anything like that. It's just the facts. You wouldn't have some, white people in power that would say, oh, well, you got to go back to Africa. Well, you've had these people here for 200 years. They're not African. So the birther law was put into place to say, hey, these people are established. And Trump has said that on many occasions, actually. He's admitted that this was made for African Americans to be American citizens. So that's where the birther law comes from. And then DACA kind of doubled down on that, protecting the parent. So that way children would not be, just ejected from the country. Or excuse me, parents wouldn't be ejected from the country, leaving the children with no parents. So they're just orphans, right? They're citizens, but your parents not, so you got to get out. So it offers them a path to citizenship that's a little bit faster.
Interesting. That is your intentions, and the intention behind that is fantastic. This is the main issue I see behind it, though. As we know, our southern neighbor is Mexico. We share so many traditional values with them in total. For one, I respect how hardworking they are. The Hispanic culture, the tight family values is an absolute testament to human relationships. And also, we share deep-rooted Christianity values, right? Mexico predominantly being a Christian country. They are, however, I'm going to use the word infiltrated by a highly organized
immigrants.
No, a
The cartels run Mexico.
highly organized and highly efficient, lethal
Right.
organizations, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Completely run the country, right? Through politician bribes, you name it. I mean, they've done everything in the book.
Shout out to Mexico too. I'm going to Mexico in like a week, so nobody ain't
country, great people.
Absolutely.
Like,
Wait, y'all don't come kidnap me.
Right. Absolutely. So the whole goal with saying that is it's very possible, right, that they would use that as a way to bring smugglers or people who are trying to, come into the country, right, to further the cartel's objectives, right, by bringing children with them so they can automatically claim, which
like a mule.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
And that's one of the issues that's going on with all the immigration over the past couple of years is all of these missing children or children that have been separated, children that have been subjected to SA assault. Yeah. And that's no one wants to see that, of course. And that's one of the pieces that wants to get stopped. And, kind of trying to get into the tariffs piece for Mexico and Canada, one of the thoughts behind the administration is we actually do their national protection because no one is going to invade Mexico. No one is going to invade Canada because they know that it would be detrimental to our national
Canada
security.
More so.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so that's a piece of why they're saying that they want to tariff those two areas.
Canada, the next state, or what are we doing? What are we doing with it? Are we taking it or what? Right. I'm trying to figure it out.
That in negotiations, what's known as a high anchor. That's when you go into it and you say, I'll sell it to you for $50,000.
I'll take it on discount.
Yeah, right. So I think that's the thought there, and shake it up, and like it had a major swing in Canada's presidential election a couple months ago because of that. I don't think that it'll become the 51st state. Hey, but if it did, I would be cool with it. I mean, I'm totally fine with it. As a matter of fact, and this might be like a way out there idea, but I would be fine to negotiate terms with the South American countries that are sending their people up, because the cartel issue, the poverty issue, these aren't specific to Mexico. This runs through Latin America.
Absolutely.
To say, okay, hey, we'll work a deal with you, but we want some sort of ownership in your country, be it land, be it influence, something of that regard, and give our people an opportunity. Guy, this is the whole thing about Greenland too. If I had the chance to buy land in Greenland, wouldn't you look at that? I would look at that, like,
So it
especially if
sounds
you knew that we were going to take it
so
over.
it sounds like you want to kind of do an EU, like kind of like the EU does, right? Free passage into each of the countries as long as you're a
Right,
member.
but that's the way
Yeah,
South America already is. Like, they're
correct.
different countries, but they operate like
Just
states. You can go
incorporated with
into
the
one,
United States.
into another.
Travel's
Yeah,
a lot more
right.
easy. Yeah.
And then taking that a step further to the Panama Canal and Greenland, I think that that's the thought behind the Trump administration. They want to reel in, like, Doge didn't really touch the DOD, but we know that some changes maybe need to be made there. I think the administration is looking at a hemispheric defense where they take back control of the Panama Canal. So they have that section of it controlled. We have Alaska in the west, and now we have Greenland in the east. So the Russian and Chinese military cannot get together, or we're just able to have deeper visibility and control over those areas. So like they sound like wild and crazy when they get thrown out in the world. I think there is more of a thought behind the madness than what it might look like off rip.
So, I mean, since we're talking about South America, like, so this is a big. I want to know you guys, you know what I'm saying, your opinions on this. So we know that like Venezuelan are actually getting to Chicago and drawing government.
Doing some gang shit.
Yeah, doing some
Venezuela, the country with
That's the Trindle.
You know what I mean? Yeah, train that out of
MS-13.
You know what I'm saying? What are y'all? What is your thoughts? And now it's crazy. It's very ironic because I'm looking at some posts on IG, TikTok, and and I'm looking at who's making the posts or whatnot. And there's old Caucasian lady. So basically, me set the tone. There's a guy who was in a gang, a Chicago gang, and he's basically telling the Venezuelan gang, he's like, hey, if you guys come over here with that garbage, there's gonna be some problems. I'm paraphrasing.
The black gangs.
The black gangs are telling the Venezuelan gangs, hey, if you come over here with that, it's gonna be some problems. We got switches, you know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be problems. And so I'm looking in the comment section, and then you got, this older Caucasian lady who's basically saying, hey, like we appreciate you for protecting the nation. You know what I mean? And so I think it's very ironic that
I'm gonna touch on that really quick. I'm gonna follow up on that. So this is a little bit off topic, but this is, and we're getting away a little bit from the Trump administration, but I'm gonna talk about something in the black community that I think needs to be pointed out. That is the first time that I've heard something like that, where the streets that a lot of gangs claim are actually saying we're going to protect our streets, and somebody from that neighborhood is like, thank you. And I think it should have been happening like that. And this is probably controversial, right? Because, and I'm not going to get too far off on a tangent, but when the Black Panthers and stuff came around, that's what they were trying to do. That's why they established like breakfast for the kids.
that was the initial thought. Yeah.
The initial thing with Medicaid came from the Black Panthers, like free clinics for people in the neighborhood and all that. I don't know.
Hearts and minds.
Yeah, exactly. So, an audience, feel free to, check it out. This is what the Black Panthers did. And so I think we need more of that. We need more. And it's not to say the police aren't trying to do that, but I think just like immigration needs reform, I think police needs reform as well, with respect. With respect, of course, to what they do and how they put themselves on the line. And I am a firm believer in making sure that our police are safe. But I'm also a firm believer in, hey, the police are here to serve the people. So I think that as people that are not police, like these gangs, stop being a gang and be a protector of your community.
Essentially, yeah.
This brings up a good point too, and like you said with Venezuela and a lot of immigration coming from Venezuela, particularly illegal immigration. I think it's important for the audience to know too that, and I don't know how well known this is. Granted, I could have been born yesterday regarding this topic, but Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world out of any country. Wow. And it's not just by a small margin either. It's by a very large margin. So you have that simple fact, right? Like you look at the Saudis, right? They are they have gotten insanely rich, right? To put it lightly, they have gotten insanely rich. It's the same with UAE, and some of the other Middle Eastern countries, right, that have large deposits of oil reserves. But Venezuela still, it's just kind of ironic that, right, they're a socialist state in a way,
Mhm.
and they have that, and almost they're borderline, if they're not already a complete failed state. Why? Why is that, right?
Mm.
Um, you know, oh, do we want to turn this into a communism versus capitalism debate? No, that's not my
Mm.
intention here, but just kind of want to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
So something I also wanted to point out was, you brought up, since I want to go back to Canada for a second, and also the European Union. So you brought up tariffs and how, the way Trump's treating allies. So let me provoke, a thought.
Yeah.
Do you think currently as it is, let's say within the past 10 to 15 years, right, do you think other NATO countries have contributed, obviously, have they contributed equally, right, to the mission of worldwide security, right, free and international trade? Have they contributed, right, or has President Trump been playing hardball for a reason, right? Right? He says they are very hard to negotiate with
Sure.
during current tariff negotiations. We don't know, right? We don't have all the information. So what do you guys think about that? Like why do you think Trump is playing hardball with them as it appears in the media?
I think that Trump is, I think he's an aggressor when it comes to business and finance. That's his niche. That's what's made him a billionaire. And so I respect the aggressive nature. Again, you have to understand that I believe, and this is my opinion, that there is a difference between a business structure and a country, right? When you're dealing with allies, whether you agree with every little thing they're doing or not, they are still our allies. I believe you should probably move with a little more caution. And Mario, like you said, some things just fly off the mouth. Okay, well, let's work on that. Let's peel that back a little bit. Let's have our constituents in our cabinet, which is why you put them in your cabinet, I hope, to give you advice and give you some type of data to make sure that what you're saying actually makes sense before you just fly off the mouth. It sounds good, right? Because it's a caricature, right? It's a caricature that we laugh at, and it makes news. And Fox News is riding his ball sack, and CNN hates his guts, and it's back and forth. But the reality
Hey, don't
is,
laugh at that, bro.
he's a jester, right? He's a jester, and if you do it too much, in my opinion, to your point, even if you don't agree with NATO, then handle your business behind closed doors and get the deal done. But don't come out of your mouth with threats, and then now the American people face the challenges, because this is a world stage.
Yes.
You know what? Let me just say something real quick, man. This is more a little bit about what you were talking about. My mom used to tell me everything with moderation. You know what I'm saying? You can have too much of a good thing. And I think like with our country, we're so used to traditional politicians. You know what I mean? And because before, I mean, hey, that's what it is. Like before Trump came along, we've had a long line or lineage or whatever you want to call it of people who are super like correct, moving like this.
Right.
You know what I'm
Trump
saying?
redefined politics.
And when he came along, he was like, "Let me tell you something." I'm not gonna even
Say
I
it,
don't,
man.
you know what I'm saying?
Say it.
He's just. I'm gonna say this dude is he's probably the most gangster like president we probably had. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. I'm gonna say what's on my mind. If you got a problem with it, we can go outside.
I can
You know what I'm saying? That's Trump. You know what I'm saying?
that.
And so like I do think that there's a necessity for that. You know what I'm saying? And running the country and having a backbone, we need that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I do think, like my mom's told me when I was younger, everything in moderation. You know what I'm saying? You can
Yes.
like for instance, and this could be like a Christian value type thing. I was taught you got to be a lion and a lamb. You feel me? Like me as a man, if I go around and I'm always a lion, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm always ready to punch somebody in the mouth. You feel me? There's times for that, but like when my little girl falls and scrapes her knee on the curb, I can't be a lion. I gotta be the
Right.
lamb. You know what I'm saying? And so
Precious balance.
so knowing how to sort of like tiptoe and walk on that, you know what I'm saying, and balance that out it's most of us, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have it mastered. You know what I'm saying? So and I'm not gonna I don't think that he has it mastered. I don't think a lot of people don't have it mastered, you know. And so I going back to like what you're saying, like I think that it can negatively affect us if he's always lying.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just my
Damn
my
good
personal
point.
that's just my personal belief on it. If he's always a lion, then you gonna run into somebody, hey, because a lion can
Or a
get,
bigger lion.
yeah, a lion could get dealt with too if it's enough baboons. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah, he's definitely an armor-piercing shell in that regard. And how did we get to Trump? Well, we got to Trump because we had a laundry list of politicians that preceded him that did all the right things and said all the right things,
Yes.
and it ended up being business as usual. I think that he's got some lamb qualities too. I think we see that for the most part. We talk about the Zelensky meeting,
mhm.
but for the most part, we see that when he meets with people in the White House. There's a tremendous transparency with him, signing everything in public. For the most part, again, he's
Holding debates in
yeah,
public with foreign leaders.
rallies in public. The press secretary is out there all the time. I mean, at least in comparison to the immediate past of the previous administration, tremendous transparency. And I'd say transparency, like in general. And the other thing, guys, is that the lion has worked for him. You know,
Oh yeah.
how are you going to tell Michael Jordan not to shoot the J?
Yeah, but
Yeah, you know,
it's worked for him, but is it working for our countries, right? So we're in a second, administration or his second term. I'd say there's a lot to discuss, and we could talk all day about it. But that's where, to his point, when the lion becomes too much, right? I agree he's doing some things in public, not all things. I think that there's a lot of things that are done after the distraction, right? Let me put this in front of you, but I'm gonna do this over here.
He definitely does that. He definitely employs a flood the zone mentality with his strategy because he knows the media. He wants to overwhelm them so they don't know what to report.
Right.
They can't possibly
That
take
is a
that
good
much time.
point.
And again, the reason is because there's nothing he could ever do to satisfy them. There's some people that will never vote for him regardless. There's some people that will never like his accomplishments. There's some people that will never achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve in whatever economy they're trying to achieve it in. They're just not going to do it. So he's saying, okay, well, I'm just going to be me and do my thing. And he is doing what he believes is right for America, in his opinion and in the opinion of the people that support him. And if it's like the conversation is framed in a way, if only he would do this, or if only he would adopt these policies, then I would be for him. But I think the real thing is, and I can get you guys' take on this, is that what really has to happen for someone to get behind him who has the Trump derangement syndrome, as it were, the Matrix has to tell that person to get behind them. The Matrix has to come out. Who's the Matrix? The educational state, the administrative state, the media, Hollywood, entertainment. If all of them say it's okay to vote for him, then they'll vote for him.
But wait a minute, the media is riding a sack. We just talked about that.
That's pro wrestling. That's pro
So, I
wrestling.
mean,
It's
if
total
we
pro
got,
wrestling.
if we got Alex Jones, and Steve
After 2020, well, Steve Bannon's a true believer. I'll give you that. But
and that's
but he doesn't compare. He's got like a smaller podcast that's growing, but he doesn't compare it to like the
you got
mainstream
Joe
media.
Rogan who flipped over, then flipped back, right? I think that Trump has media followers.
Right.
I know that the thought process is everybody, which is interesting. We're going to talk about this word today. This is an interesting word that we're going to talk about. I want to see y'all opinion on this word.
Keep your creative juices flowing, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
We get some other juices flowing over there. Yes, sir.
What are you doing over there?
I'm doing my business.
So I think that and I'm going to try to understand what you're saying fully. It feels like what you're saying is those that are following Trump right now or that believe in what he's doing are awake, right? Or woke, right? In
Unplugged.
the sense they're woke for Trump, right? They're not woke for everything else because that term has taken a
Connotation.
new connotation. But they're awake in the sense of they understand what Trump is doing, right? Versus everyone else. And I don't know if you consider everyone else the left. I hear that term a lot. The left is turned around a lot. I don't know how legitimate that is. I've talked to conservatives that don't like Trump. Are they left? I don't know, right? I don't know where MAGA stands on that. But I guess my question for you is, are the MAGA people the only people getting it right? And if you're wrong about some of the actions that he's taken, are you then the left? Perfect example is Elon and Trump were buddy. I mean, they were, for less than better words, they were butt buddies. I mean, they were everywhere together. He was hopping up and down, dark MAGA, his 250 for your campaign, even though Trump doesn't take money, apparently. But here you go, right? But now, all of a sudden, it's not working out. So is he now the enemy? Is he now left?
So let's dissect that, right? Let's
And then I'll
debate
go.
this.
Yeah.
Let's debate this, right? Let's debate the Trump and Elon Musk breakup, so to speak, right? So it's hard to categorize them, right? As buddies, like, right? It's when you have that much influence that both of these men wield, right? Like their relationship,
Transactional.
is can be very exactly transactional, right? So what caused this, right? Elon definitely, according to public record, Elon definitely put a lot of money towards Trump's election campaign. So what do you guys feel about that? I mean, what do you think about the breakup? Like why is this occurring right now? Did something let's break it into two categories, right? Because that's the only way I see it personally, personal opinion.
Yeah.
Did something happen behind the scenes that's, a revelation, groundbreaking, or was it simply one man is ticked off at
Well-
the other's policy, and we're seeing the fallout of,
Well, let's talk about it like from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Like my thing is, if you do something for me, and all the while your motive. Let's talk about it from the motives. You know what I mean?
the underlying motive.
The underlining motives. If you do something for me, but it's not because you want to see me, like you do want to see me succeed, but it's for a reason that you want me to see me succeed. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna better what you got going
Right.
on.
It benefits you and it benefits myself.
Voila, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And so my thing is, you ever been in an argument with somebody, whether it be male, female, whatever, and they come back and they say, "Well, I did this for you. I did this. The reason you are where you are right now is because
That's what we're saying.
I did this." You know what I'm saying? So my thing is like that, and maybe I'm going back to motives because we're talking about, hey, like, man, I don't know if they were ever friends per se. You know what I'm saying? They were just sort of using each other's platform to further each other's agenda. But I know we've talked about this off camera. You know what I'm saying? We knew that this was going to happen at some point. Maybe it came a little bit quicker than expected.
5 months.
5 months. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the fact of the matter is, whether you love Trump, whether you hate Trump, like Elon, hate Elon, the thing is they both have very large egos.
Yes.
And I think that if you put two large egos like that inside of a small box, you know what I'm saying, and be like, hey, we need you two to work and get this, I think it's only a matter of time before it's like something's gonna blow up. You know what I mean? And so I just question, like, did the motives behind everything from the start? And I think that a lot of people probably have seen what we see. You know what I'm saying? Like it was bound to flop. You know what I mean? Long story short.
Well, I mean, you say that, but 2 months ago, when I was having conversations and I was like, hey man, I don't know, this Elon guy, he's infiltrating our government, he's looking at our social security numbers, snap,
Mm-hmm.
wake up.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, and I'm not gonna say everybody, but there were those that were like, oh no, Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Elon's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what?
It's like the girlfriend who gets mad and she starts doing damage and she knows all your business and the relationship
he's working
ends
it out.
and then now all this stuff and another thing, he did this and he did that, and you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I told you that in confidence.
What do you think, Mario? I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, Elon, to go back, he started with that small company. It was called Pop 2 or something like that in Silicon Valley, sold it for several million and then got PayPal, right? And then moved on to Tesla, the first viable electric car that the market had been calling for a long time. And not just that, but like the best. Like not just any electric car, but like the best.
Oh, I think he's a smart guy.
Right,
absolutely.
right. So
Absolutely.
no
No arguments. All facts.
and I'm establishing that to say he was a darling of the left. The left loved him. He was a total darling. and then things started turning. Moved his company out of California to Texas.
But why? That's important for the
Right,
audience.
right.
Why?
Well,
Why?
because he was in disagreement with the economic policies of California, right? Which is run,
Specifically tax and
right? Which they had Schwarzenegger for what, a handful of years in the 2000s, but the comments are going to trash me on this one. But I don't think that they've had a conservative or Republican governor since Reagan, maybe.
Well, I mean,
prior to that.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I throw him as
Oh,
the exception.
okay,
Right?
okay.
Him and Reagan, and those are only two, and maybe they've had another one since then. But Reagan, that was 40 years ago. Just
Okay.
established that, or over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And he. I also I think that he disagreed with COVID policies that were happening from the Biden administration. And then he got suited up with Trump. And then the left left him, the right embraced him. Now he's alienated himself from the right. I don't know who his people are anymore. He was tweeting out about to the point of the breakup, the big beautiful bill, right? That's what he's been talking about. He doesn't like it.
Right.
Right. And then he was already on his way out the door from Doge. I don't really know the details from that. Maybe that might have been expedited a little bit too because of it. I don't know who his tribe is anymore. He was tweeting out about call your congressman, My understanding of the situation, there was like virtually no action taken. I think that if there is a bromance and then a falling out, Trump won this thing. I mean, he had his support when he needed him to get into office.
And then what I told you?
And then Doge, he needed him for Doge. Doge got spun up. And now Elon's out. And hey, here's the other thing. This kind of thing happens all the time. If they're friends again in 6 months, raise your hand if you would be surprised.
they are discussing. They are.
You know what I'm saying? It happens all the time. Pro wrestling. It's pro wrestling team. It's pro wrestling.
So let's talk about the big beautiful bill. What was Elon so upset about in this big beautiful bill that caused this, right? Like, because it's one thing to be upset with someone. It is an absolute another when you're one of the most followed people on the planet on a social media platform and you absolutely trash and personal insult to the point where Jeffrey Epstein's name is involved. So let's talk about that. Like, what is in that big beautiful bill that caused this?
My understanding is in the bill, it's either going to take away tax credits for his size of business or not add them to one form or the other. And there isn't enough cutting of spending, which the cutting of spending piece, a lot of MAGA agrees with that. It's being framed in MAGA world is not perfect, but something you can live with, right? Because we definitely want to push through, right? Because the MAGA crowd is saying, or the general, I don't know how far outside of MAGA this might go, but like wanting to retain the middle class and working class tax cuts that are part of Trump's initial tax cut that are now up to either be extended or to go away. And so they want to push it for that and just not have a complete government shutdown or whatever the repercussions of not pushing things through right now at this point. The other piece that people in MAGA are talking about, MAGA understands we've got to raise the taxes on the rich at some point. We got to raise the taxes on the rich. There is not enough of that.
That's for blue and red.
Right, right. There's not enough of that either in the bill. And I think that those were the heartbeat of what he came out and spoke against.
That's interesting that you say that because that was a big point of contention for years, I thought, especially when Kamala was running. And she was saying, hey, we're going to tax the rich. A lot of people don't realize what is being said and how taxes actually function. I had a buddy of mine that was like, oh, I'm not going to vote for Kamala because she's going to tax me. I'm like, dude, you make $80,000. She's not taxing you. The taxes are for people that make $400,000 or $500,000.
Hey, you popped the engineer with that one, man.
She's not taxing. She's not taxing you, bro. You're gonna vote outside of your own interest because you think that she's gonna tax you. No, she's not.
Right, and that was only geared towards high income earning individuals.
Correct.
That is important to know.
Right, and Kamala specifically, AOC specifically, Bernie specifically, we believe they're socialist, whether they come out and say it or not.
Socialist, wow.
Yeah, we disagree with that.
Words, man.
Right. Well, right. Well,
tell me why they're socialists, though. Explain to me why they're socialists. Because I want to understand your definition behind that.
They want equity for all. It is the way that we're with the time that we've got in the my ability to articulate the points, that might be the best way to say it. And I think Bernie even admittedly says that he's a socialist. You know, he left the Democratic Party and is an independent now. So he does stuff with the
Mm-hmm.
Democratic Party, but is actually an
On his
independent.
own.
And yeah, AOC, listen to her speeches. You know, there's a lot of talk that ultimately boils down to equity for all, which sounds good, but you know, we don't have a working. The thing about socialism and communism, or socialism is the economic wing of communism. We don't have there's not a working model of where it's ever been successful, implemented and
Yeah.
been successful.
But
And then you-
nothing that you said right now, and I asked a very direct question. I said, "What is your definition of socialism?" You're telling me, and this is just what I'm hearing. You're telling me about equity for all, and that really is just a segue from equality for all, right? So, and there's a difference
yeah,
between the two terms,
right.
right? And that can be
Equality is
confused really
right.
quickly.
Equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equal outcome.
Correct. I
Right.
agree with that.
Right,
So
that
where
makes
do
sense.
you see where do you see equal equity in what they're saying is what I'm asking. That creates a socialist or communist, because that's the extreme version of that. In what, and I'll use Kamala specifically because she ran for president.
Right.
Where do we see any communist thought process in what she was telling us about the American people?
Oh, MAGA thinks that Kamala was not going to be a good fit for president because with taxes and trying to think of a good way to say this.
Sure.
Yeah, taxes and uh, wanting to set it up to where everyone has the same outcome at the end of the day. A $25 minimum wage, or you know, principles like this, which sound great, and obviously we want people to make more money.
Sure.
But the market is going to dictate what the market's going to dictate, and
Yeah.
you're you're already going to have issues with inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Um,
Well, inflation came from the last 5 years of inflation came from COVID. It was a global
right,
inflation. So globally, we had inflation. It wasn't a US thing that was from Joe Biden, right? It was from the fact that a lot of the shipping containers and all of these people that were sending in things that we utilize could not get their gear in a timely fashion because people weren't working because we had masks on for 2 years. That creates inflation. So it's not a socialist experiment that Joe Biden and I'm not a huge fan. I wasn't a huge fan of Joe Biden. I'll put that out there. But I just want to get to we have to have a baseline of truth. And I think that sometimes on both sides, it's not just MAGA or anybody else. I think what happens is we conflate things and we use words like socialism and woke, and then we just put people in a pocket and we don't know what we're saying. And I don't think that Kamala was saying anything about socialism. What Kamala was saying, from what I gathered,
that was going to be my question to you: is tell me your
I
thoughts
voted for
on
Kamala. I'll put
on
that out there
how
right now.
they're not socialist.
Sure. Well, they're not. Well, first of all, my definition of socialism is taking from everybody contributing to one pot and then that pot gets distributed.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the baseline of socialism. I don't see any Democrats saying that. What they're saying is, hey, if I'm an Asian man and I walk in with two white guys, or I walk in with, two white guys and one black guy, and I am an Asian guy that's highly, worthy of this job, that you're not going to use nepotism to just hire this guy. That is what is being sought, because the reality is, prior to 1960s, that is what was going on. That people need to understand the history of our country. We can't forget, just because things are different now, where our history came from. It's only been 40 years. In Mississippi in 1995, it was still illegal for interracial marriage in 95 or 97. Don't quote me on that, but it was in the 90s. That's pretty close. That means that I can't marry the woman I love because of a law that says I can't in that state. So I think when we talk about equality, we're saying, are we trying to draw a line in the sand? And I think Kamala was saying, this is just my opinion, that no, we don't need to draw that line in the sand. We are all people. If we're talking about taxes, again, the people that are voting for Trump, most of them make under $100,000. Most of them.
That'd be for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's only 10% of people that make, or 15%. So the rest of the country makes lower than $100,000. Kamala's not taxing you. Are you paying attention to what's going on?
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
then, California is a dumpster fire, though. She was a senator there. Newsom is the governor there. It's been long controlled by Democrats.
It
Like
is important to
you'd
know.
have to show me a blue
It is.
city that isn't a dumpster fire that
It is
also
important
isn't
to
run
know
by
it's a lot of
Democrats.
major businesses.
And not this
That is
and not this
important.
past cycle, but in
Yeah.
previous cycles, the Democratic Party was talking about universal basic income. So yes, that is exactly that,
What?
where you have
Universal
money and
basic
you
income.
distribute it to everybody.
Healthcare? Listen, we live in a country, we're supposed to be the richest, most successful, and regardless of whether people like it or not, the most diverse country on earth. Why would we not have healthcare for our citizens? And they just did a study that came out, and you guys can go check it out. The study was basically the most democratic, meaning like democracy, not like blue or left, but like the most democratic countries in the world and how they've been profitable. A lot of these countries like Switzerland and these places that have universal health care and take care of their citizens have the longest lifespans, the best actual life, less disease, the most children being born, all the things we want in America. And yet we're scared to give our citizens health care, but we'll spend we're going to, in the big, beautiful bill, we're going to spend around $800 billion for immigration. But we won't spend a little bit of money to take care of our citizens' health.
Right. MAGA would say that in many situations we already have universal health care, i.e., if you were to break your leg and you did not have health care, you would go into an emergency department and you would be seen. You would be seen. So in a lot of ways, there is that safety net there. Like the 2 weeks to slow the spread during COVID was just saying like, hey, if there's only like a 5 or 10% uptick in the amount of people that need to be seen in the healthcare system, it could bring the whole healthcare system down. So there's a whole lot there with Switzerland. We don't have the same calling as Switzerland. First of all, Switzerland's irrelevant unless you want to bury some money somewhere. Give me an example of when you're up against pressure and you say, I know what I'll do. I'll call Switzerland. It's not
Talking about for military.
They do have
or anything.
I'm gonna call them for the banks.
Right.
Let me get a Swiss.
They don't
Let me get a
have the
Swiss
same
bank.
calling, So like I get that, but like that is not
Cheers.
what we are or the calling. I don't know if you get to be number one in the world and then have the most laid back or cushy benefits of everything in the world. I don't know if it works like that. Has it ever worked like that at any time? You even if you go back to like the Ming Dynasty and these, it was like the wealthiest at the top, which China still is, and then everyone else is slaves or migrants or serfs.
That, my friend, is called an oligarchy, and that is where we're headed. Is that what you'd like to see?
That's what. I disagree that we're headed there, but go ahead.
Yeah, as we can see, from the audience, this is a good conversation, right? We're promoting a lot of significant and a lot of good topics, right? Like whether you like it or not, you will become involved in politics at some point in your life, right? Because the way the current administration is going, right, at some point in time, your wallet will be affected, and that is what gets most people involved in politics, right? Is when your money is affected and it affects your livelihood and or family. So with that, we took an entire episode on politics. We promise we have more in store for you all, but
Next up.
we will bring some stuff to this. But I hope you all saw the fact that what the overall goal of this podcast is, right? We are trying to promote healthy skeptic type conversations, right? As you can see, we all disagree on certain topics, and that's perfectly fine. That is our goal. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching, and A absolute shout out to Mic'd Up Studios for hosting us, and we thank you guys.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Gentlemen's Jack. Thanks, Jack Daniels.